Are you saving enough for retirement? Well, if you're like the more than 26 million Americans who answered with a resounding no, then you are not alone. In fact, most Americans aren't saving anywhere near enough for even a modest retirement. Research has shown that 26,400,000 Americans between the age of 55 and 64 only have $50,000 total saved for retirement. Forbes magazine predicts we are on the precipice of the greatest retirement crisis in the history of the world. Too frail to work, too poor to retire is becoming the new normal for many elderly Americans. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 1 out of every 6 Americans at retirement age are living below the federal poverty line. Why? Because the way Americans are saving just isn't effective. Here at The Motley Fool, we've been researching how people save for their retirement. And we found that depending on their age and the retirement planning stage they're in, the majority of people fall into one of these 4 categories. Surrender. Just tell me what to do. Resist. Why should I believe all this? Avoid. I'll think about this later. And research. Look for trusted experts. Now, do you fit into one of the categories? Well, since you're watching this video right now, you aren't avoiding or resisting thinking about retirement, so we can cross those 2 off the list. Now that leaves us with 2 categories, surrender and research. If you feel overwhelmed by all the options available to you or aren't sure if you're on the right path, you may fall into the surrender category. It isn't surprising that so many feel unsure because individual investors saving for their own retirement is such a new concept. The whole idea of modern retirement is maybe 30 years old. Let me take you back in time. It shows how dramatically retirement has changed. From 1900 to 1935, the average life expectancy for an American was between 49 and 60 years. There were some small private pensions, but the majority of Americans just worked until they died. There was no concept of retirement. In 1935, Social Security was enacted, establishing 65 as the retirement age and giving Americans the opportunity to retire. Social Security gave American industries the ability to cycle out older workers for younger ones. The average life expectancy at that time was between 60 and 68 years, so usually people only collected for a couple of years. It was not until the 1980s that people began having the expectation that they would live a long time in retirement. Now, this is at the same time that employers began shifting away from company-funded pensions, which had grown to cover about half the workforce, and began placing the burden on the employee to invest for retirement on their own or through a company-sponsored plan of sorts like the 401k established in 1978 or the IRA, which wasn't created until 1997. That means personal investing is a young, new industry. It can't be reiterated enough. People just don't have that much experience saving for their own retirement. The biggest demographic of investors today are the baby boomers, those born between 1946 and 1964. Their parents probably didn't need to invest their own money to fund retirement. This is why there isn't much generational knowledge transfer and why millions of investors are confused, misinformed, and scared to invest on their own. Today, there are about 41 million Americans aged 55 to 64 who expect to retire in the next 10 to 15 years. Of those 41 million, 26 million have less than $50,000 saved for retirement, which is not nearly enough. A couple retiring today will likely need around $250,000 just to cover health care costs during retirement, according to HealthView Services. So what are you supposed to do? Well, many people turn to a financial advisor or a mutual fund because they want to place this important aspect of their life into the hands of a professional. It's simple and it doesn't take a lot of effort. But you have to remember 2 things. One, if you have a financial advisor or own mutual funds, you are paying fees, and those fees can vary greatly and spiral into huge amounts. 2, historical investment results show that most money managers and financial advisors are not very good at what they do. Let's talk about that. If I asked you how much you're paying for your cell phone, you could tell me down to the penny. But if I ask, how much do you pay for your mutual funds, you probably have no idea, and you're not alone. A recent survey by Limra Loma asked 1,000 investors who own mutual funds, how much do you pay for your investments in fees? About half of those surveyed said, I don't know, and a quarter responded, they don't think they pay anything for it. Now, think if they had asked, how much do you pay for gasoline, and a quarter of people said they didn't pay anything for gasoline. It's inconceivable. But it's what people think when they invest their money with an outside professional, which shows you just how confused and misled investors have become. The truth, of course, is that everyone who owns mutual funds or has a financial advisor pays fees. How much? Well, if in 2002 you invested $100,000 in an S&P 500 index fund, you would have about $229,000 today and paid about $2,200 in fees on average. If you would have taken that same $100,000 and invested in the average mutual fund, you would have about $204,000 today and paid $19,000 in fees. And lastly, if you would have invested that same $100,000 in a hedge fund, you'd have about $224,000 today and would have paid $70,000 in fees. So as you can see, we're talking anywhere from $2,000 to over $70,000 in fees on a $100,000 investment. That is a lot of money. Money that is yours and could help grow your retirement account. Once you understand that there are fees associated with these accounts, the most important question then becomes, what are you getting for all these fees? Is it good advice? Is it market-beating results? Often it's neither. Now let's take a look at another quick example. There are about 10,000 mutual funds in America today. Of those, 88% failed to meet their benchmark over a 10-year period. So Americans end up paying high fees for subpar results. And to make it even worse, 53 million Americans aren't just paying high fees for this sub-benchmark advice, they're also overpaying in the billions. About 2 years ago, consultants from IBM wanted to understand just how much people were overpaying for financial advice. They calculated that people around the world were overpaying by about $500 billion per year. That's $500 billion overpaid for bad investment advice. To put this into perspective, that's almost exactly the same amount that the United States pays on K-12 education per year for the whole country. Or to put it another way, if overpaying for financial advice was a country with a GDP of $550 billion, it would be the 17th largest country in the world, coming right after Poland. Now this is pitchforks and torches stuff if people knew about it, but as I've showed you, a lot of them don't. They're oblivious to how much they're paying for investment advice and how poor their investment returns have been. So, what is the answer? How can investors set themselves up for a comfortable retirement on their own without paying a fortune for subpar advice? That question brings us to our last category, research. Look for trusted experts. And that is where we, the Motley Fool, and our flagship service, Stock Advisor, come in. Let's take another look at the $100,000 investment example I showed you before. If you had invested the same $100,000, not in a mutual fund, hedge fund, or S&P 500 index fund, but in the recommendations from our Stock Advisor service from 2002 to today, you'd have almost $896,000 and would have only paid $2,060 in fees. Pretty amazing, right? We think so too. We're proud of it. What is Stock Advisor? It is an investment newsletter which was founded in 2002 by two brothers, Tom and David Gardner. They remain the lead advisors today. These two brothers started the Motley Fool, one of the most successful investment clubs in America, back in 1993. Their mission has been the same ever since, to help the world invest better, to help ordinary people take control of their finances and live better lives. which is why the founders were asked to speak on Capitol Hill to fight on behalf of individual investors like you. The Economist declared the Motley Fool an ethical oasis within the financial industry. I am one of the Motley Fool's investment analysts who work tirelessly to help you find great investments. If you're confused about how to invest for your retirement and are stuck in the surrender phase of your investment journey, frustrated with paying high fees for lower than benchmark performance, you may love what we have to offer. Stock Advisor is filled with smart investors who've beaten the market for more than 20 years with some of the lowest fees around. It is a fast and simple way to find stocks that have been vetted and are picked using principles that we're happy to share with you today. No secrets, no hidden fees, just sound investing advice. Such as, buy stocks and companies where you have a good understanding. View investing as acquiring ownership in sound businesses that will create value for years to come. Invest for 5 years or more. Search for companies led by carefully selected management teams with proven track records. Focus on businesses with strong brands and durable competitive advantages. The results speak for themselves. Tom, David, and the team of analysts have outperformed the market by $3 to $1 since 2002. In fact, industry watchdog Mark Hulbert awarded 3 of the Motley Fool's investing services the first, second, and third place rankings of more than 200 investing newsletters for a 5-year performance from 2008 to 2013. So if you're looking forward to the day you can retire and want to get on the right path right now, then look no further than the Motley Fool and Stock Advisor. Try it yourself for 30 full days. If at any time during those 30 days you want to cancel your subscription, we'll refund every penny of your membership fee. Planning for retirement is difficult. A bad decision or trusting someone with the wrong motives could cost you thousands. But today you have the opportunity to join with one of the best investment clubs anywhere. Don't get stuck in the surrender phase, paying high fees for bad advice. Just click the Start Now button below and start your Stock Advisor membership today.